Just that one little call? That's all you got? Just that one?
We haven't got started yet. I found out from several days of work, if I don't talk, I don't call. They're definitely tied together. Because the temperature is dropping about a degree every 15 or 20 minutes, we're going to shut down about 7:45. Brother Owen's not here, so instead of having the invitation and then 2 songs and 2 prayers, when I finish, we will have the announcements and the invitation song and a prayer. So we're going to try to shut down and get out of here about 7:45. Thank you all for coming. Isaiah chapter 63. So think about where we are in the text. There's a beautiful prayer that I want to go over in some detail this evening, but just think about for a moment where we are. So Isaiah prophesied from 740 to 690 years before Christ. The nation that he was prophesying to, the nation of Judah, would not actually go away until about 609. So he's looking at this in a vision as if it were happening right now, when in fact it's not going to be happening for 80 to 90 years. Let me tell you what I want you to think about as we're looking at this prayer. Imagine if we had a prophet today that was looking at the United States of America and he was telling us what was going to happen in 80 years and giving us intricate detail as if it were happening right now, because he's seeing it all in living color and he's telling the people all these things are going to happen. And oh, by the way, you can't fix them anymore. You remember several times we read, twice in the book of Isaiah, and once in the book of 2 Kings, there was no remedy. It was already beyond that in God's mind. So what you see in this text is, in Isaiah chapter 63, God's talking about the remnant of people now. So 70 years later, 536 is where you read the book of Ezra. And this is where all of the people, Cyrus put a decree out all over the world. Anybody that's Jewish that wants to come back, we want you coming back. We're happy to have you. And we're going to have all of your neighbors and friends. I don't care where you live. If you're in Babylon, if you're in Persia, if you're in Assyria, wherever you live, the king of the world says, I'm going to make certain that all of your neighbors and all of your friends finance you coming back. They also will finance the building of the wall and so forth. So Ezra is when this actually begins. We'll be looking at the book of Haggai in time, in the book of Zechariah. All of these were the prophets in that time. So what you see happen here is Isaiah is telling them where they are in the process. So take a look in chapter 62. And he sees this vision in chapter 62, and the vision is this man dressed, a warrior dressed in all kinds of array. You imagine like what you see some of the Chinese samurais possibly. And then he has a vision of God, and God is in a long robe completely drenched in blood. And Isaiah said, what does that mean? And what did it mean when God, he saw a picture of God completely covered in blood and blood dripping off the bottom of his... what did that mean? What it meant was, and I want you to look at this in Isaiah 63, verse 3. Isaiah 63 and 3, I have trodden the wine trough alone, and from the people there was no man. I trod them in my anger and trampled them in my wrath, and their life blood is sprinkled on my garment. That's why he saw this vision. Verse 4, the day of vengeance was in my heart, and my year of redemption is come. And I looked, and there was no one to help, and I was astonished, and there was no one to uphold. So my arm brought salvation to me. Now look in chapter 63 and verse 7. So he's looking at this, God is, and he's showing Isaiah in the context of loving kindness. All of this destruction single person that was going to oppose this operation. God said, I'm going to be your enemy, and I'm going to make sure to take out vengeance on you. And so in verse 7, he begins talking about his loving kindness. What is he actually doing? In verse 7, I shall make mention, Isaiah said, of the loving kindness of the Lord, the praise of the Lord, according to all that the Lord has granted us, and great goodness toward the house of Israel, which he has granted them according to his compassion, and according to a multitude of his loving kindness, for he said, surely they are my people. Let's just stop for a minute. When was the first time that God looked at this nation of people and said, you're my people? It goes back to the everlasting covenant that we talked about. Who was the first person he said this to? Abraham. That's right. Genesis 12. From your descendants will be my people. So in verse 9, in their affliction, he was afflicted. When God had to punish these people, it afflicted God as well. He felt afflicted also. In verse 9, in their anger he was afflicted, in their affliction he was afflicted, and the angel of his presence saved them. In his love and his mercy he redeemed them, he lifted them and carried them all the days of old. But then verse 10 says something. What does it say? In time they rebelled. So God's people, and it happened multiple times. It happened when multiple times they wanted to mutiny against Moses and pick new leaders and head back to Egypt. That's why in Acts chapter 7,